A lot of people come to me and ask me about laser cutting. So I thought it would be good to do an end-to-end video right from idea through layout or through design and layout on the laser cutter and actually doing the laser cut. And I thought, what better way to do it than to print a little keychain with my name on it. So if you want to see how that's done, stick around. Hi, I'm Steve, and I make everything. Today, I want to walk you through a simple design for laser cutting, starting with just coming up with an idea, then using something like Inkscape to create the drawing and the PDF file that you can drop on your laser cutter, and then using something like Retina Engrave on the Muse 3D to actually do the layout on your cutter and pushing that go button and making your laser actually do something. So what I decided to do was just start with something really simple, which is a name tag I showed you in the lead-in. And with that, we can just get started. And we'll start with Inkscape. We already have our idea. We're going to make a keychain. And we'll just start with Inkscape to lay something out. Okay, I've started up Inkscape, and the first thing we want to do, obviously, is create a string with my name in it. And just to make that a nicer font, let's just grab, I downloaded one called Dancing Script off of Amazon Fonts, and it generates a nice script, as you can see. And we'll make it about 72 pixels, just to get to the right size for our key tag. And to create an outline, we're going to do a bit of a cheat, kind of, but we'll duplicate the string, and you can see we now have two of them. And just for simplicity, I'll go to the outline display mode, just so you can see what these things look like. We'll use that in a second. And first thing we want to do is just convert this to a path. And now you can see that it's just an outline. But notice, and let me zoom in a bit here. Notice that the letters are actually detached, and we're going to want those to actually be together. So what we want to do is select the individual or paths, sorry, and we want to attach them all together. And the easiest way to do that is to combine them first and then create a union. And now when you look at it, it's all one single path. And with that, we can go back to the normal display, because that's all we really needed to see there. So now this, and let's just push this one out of the way for now. So this is now a proper path. It's not really a font anymore, or a font character set. It's just pixels. And now we want to do is we don't really need the fill right now, so let's just undo that. But we do want an outline, as you can see. So let's pick that. And we've already done the object to path, but we can do it again just to be sure. And now what we want to do is, if we select this thing, we want to use this as our outline. And the way we're going to do that is we'll create a dynamic offset. And you can see once I do that, there's this little dot up here that we can grab and drag, and you can see it actually bloats out the text a bit. And that'll be good enough. We can actually just drag our name in there just to see how it looks. And that's about the right kind of offset. But we have all these kind of messy things here. So what we want to do is clean those up. And we can just, sorry, we want to go back to here. So we can just actually select these things and delete them, because the ones in the center we don't actually care about. And if we leave them there, then the laser, when we cut this, will be doing some strange things, because these will actually be the cut path. So we can clean most of those up. There's maybe one here. And in Inkscape, you can actually hit the delete key to delete individuals, and it will automatically kind of reconnect the things around it. So there we go. That's not too bad. And so we've cleaned up the noise. Now what we also need here is we're going to need some kind of loop to hold our keychain, and we'll just do a kind of a control here. And if we go back to here, you can see this is actually quite a hefty stroke here. So let's reduce that down to, say, 0.125. And a good size for the outside of the loop is maybe 10 millimeters in both directions. And once we have that, we can lock it so that it stays round. And oops. And now we can just grab it and drag it to the place where we want to put it. Let's put our name back here just so we know we're not going to overwrite. Okay. In fact, let's just grab all of these and we'll align them somewhere close to the center of the page vertically. And so now we have what amounts to the outside of our keychain loop. We can push that in quite a ways. And then we need to create the inside. And the inside, 5 millimeters should be okay. So let's go back here and we'll set this to 5. And we want to align this in the center of the eye loop. So we'll say, align it to the biggest and we can center it. So there we have our kind of loop and our outer edge. And just to make these consistent, I'll also set the stroke on this one to 0.125. 0.125 is a kind of a good outline for the laser. It's roughly, kind of the width of the beam. So what you see is almost what you get. Now we have something interesting happening here where we have an outline, and actually let's just make these red for now. Just, sorry. Just so that we know that they're cut lines. So we can see them. So now we have the 3 things that we will basically cut from the outside. But if we cut this now, you'd end up with kind of a big piece, this little slice in the middle, and then sort of some fraction of a ring. So what we really want to do is kind of merge all of these. The inside is what it is, but we'll take the 2 pieces from the outside and we'll select them. And what we'll do is create a union there. So now you can see we've basically got the design we need. And and that's pretty much, it's starting to look like a key tag. The one thing we might want to do is, if we wanted to maybe make this font a bit bolder, we could do what we did before, where we convert this to a path, and so it's all now broken apart. If we can see it, that they're all individual. And if we select the entire thing and now say, do this dynamic offset again, sorry, we will need to pick individuals. We'll have to select them all. And we want to do that same thing to create we want to combine it and do a union so that it's all one piece. Now we can take the path and we can create a dynamic offset. And again, you can see the little dot up at the top. And if we just want to make this a bit fatter, we can. And there we have it. So there's not a lot left to do there as far as creating the key tag. But one thing we now need to do is we want to save a copy of this as a PDF file, which is the thing we're going to shove to the printer. So, we can call it Keychain 3, doesn't matter. If I could type. And we'll save that as a PDF. And that's it. All we need to do now is load that into the laser cutter and start. So that's what we'll do next. Okay, so we're looking at Retina Engrave 3 here, which is the layout and design tool that's built into the laser cutter. And right now we're looking at what amounts to an empty workspace. We don't know what's there, so the first thing we're going to do is do a scan of the workspace to capture what's on it so we know where our material is. And I'll do this entire section in real time, including the print, the subsequent print. And just so there's no magic happening here, it's just what you see is what you actually get when you're using a Muse 3D. And you can see it's taking 3 rows of 3 photos to stitch together, and they initially look kind of weird, but once it puts everything together, you'll see what amounts to an actual proper desktop here. And there's our material. You can see I've already printed a label here in previously, but we have lots of space. So what I'll do is I'll import my keychain that I drew with Inkscape. And notice here I have both the vector and raster content selected. So when it opens this file, imports it, both layers will be there. We'll only use one of them, but so we'll load up our keychain PDF file that we created. And you can see it imported up here. We can take it and drag it down to a place where we want to print. And now we can zoom in so we can see where it is. And we could probably save a little more space here if we wanted to move it over a bit. Now, one thing we can do, because the camera layout may or may not be exact, one thing we can do at this point is we could do a perimeter scan. And what that does, if you can hear the laser cutter going in the background, it's actually drawing a rectangle around this. And on screen here, you can sort of see a little red dot. It's probably easier to see in person than over video, but it's drawing the perimeter. So it looks like it's going to print just fine, so we can stop that. Now, what we have is, I mentioned we have a raster image and a vector image. Both of these came out of Inkscape and were embedded into the PDF file. PDFs are nice because they can handle both. All that you'll really notice, other than the fact that it's here, is if you look at the perimeter, you can see there's a black line and a red line. The red line we know is the cut line because we put it there. The black line is actually just a raster rendering of it, or of the cut line. And if I turn off the vector, you can see everything is black, and this is what would be rendered, and there wouldn't actually be any cuts here. So what we're going to do is turn that layer off, and we'll turn on the vector layer. And if we expand this, you can see there are 3 elements here. And if I hover over them, you can see what they actually are. So the one at the bottom here is the lettering, and then the main part of the outline that we're going to cut, and the last one, which we can select here, is the hole, just to make it more obvious. So now we arbitrarily selected colors here of red for the cuts. That's more for my understanding than anything. And you can see the tool by default coincidentally uses red, and you'll see red and black here. And all those are is on the cutter itself, those are just representative colors. So if I pick the vector image here, you'll see that, well, actually I'll pick one of the, well, let's pick the whole, it's easy. You'll see it's actually red right now, but I could actually change this to any color I want. And if I changed it to blue, you would see that it now actually changed the color to blue. So the color itself doesn't actually matter, but what it does is helps create a kind of a profile for the settings that you can use. I'll leave it at red. And so what this really means is for anything right now that's red, we're going to print with a 30% speed, cut with a 30% speed and 100% power. And that will be a cut just by virtue of it being 100% power. This is 1/8 inch acrylic, so it's not very thick. And the speed certainly running the laser over this slowly will be enough to cut through that. So we have the two red things selected here. They're both red, and anything right now that's red will use this setting. The letters, however, they're black, and if we select them, don't worry that they've turned blue. That's just a selection. You can see there it's black right now. And I already know it's using some predefined settings I had, that if I wanted to etch this rather than cut through it, I want to use a fairly quick speed on acrylic, so I just use 100%. And I just want a very thin kind of engraving on the surface and etching. And so I'm going to pick a power rating of 4%. You'll get used, if you have a Muse 3D or, well, any Fuse full spectrum laser product, you'll get used to this because they use it everywhere. It's pretty simple actually once you kind of get your head around what these basic settings mean. But one thing here is there isn't any actual fill right now. So if I cut this right now, it would just print an outline of the letters. And I don't want that. I want to actually have some etching in the center of them. So up here, I can pick infill, and I can pick none for sure, which is the default. Or I can pick one of a few settings, certainly horizontal and vertical lines. And when I zoom into, after I cut this, when I zoom in, you'll see I'll select horizontal lines, and you'll actually be able to see the etching. You can change that by changing the spacing. So if you want really dense lines, you can select horizontal and crank this down to some really small value like 0.001, and the lines will effectively be closer together. Now it'll take longer to print when you do that, but so I'll pick some infill, and you can see now the letters have turned black, which means they're also going to be etched. One last thing here, since we're here, I won't use it, but if I decided I just wanted to print the infill and I didn't want the outline around it, I could click this and it would turn off the outline printing. I'm not going to bother on this particular print because it's really simple, but there are times when you just don't want to print the outline, and in the future I'll have videos where I do actually turn off the outline. Anyway, with that, we now have the image set up exactly the way we want, and all that's really left to do is hit the go button, and it will cut that out. Before I do that, though, I'll go and set up a camera on the printer so you can actually watch in real time what's happening here. One of the viewers of one of the setup videos for the Muse asked me to show the laser in action, so we'll do it with this video. Anyway, with that, we'll head over to the printer, to the laser cutter. So there you have the full workflow to create a keychain, from design inception to actually using a tool like Inkscape to create an image, laying it out on your laser cutter, and actually producing a product. As you can see from the close-up of the final output, which I'll show up here somewhere, the resolution is actually quite good. And things cut on acrylic look actually pretty amazing. So keychains are definitely something that are, come out really nicely. If you're a maker and you have something like an Etsy store, they're also quite cheap to produce. This keychain that I created is probably 5 or 6 cents worth of acrylic, and if you put a ring on it, a pack of keychain rings off of Amazon is something on the order of less than $10 for 25 or 30 of them. So you can make them fairly cheap. And on Etsy, if you're creating like customized tags where you want to allow somebody to put their own name on, the profit margin could be pretty high. I mean, you've got 20 or 30 cents worth of product that you can sell for a few dollars. So anyway, keep that in mind. And that's it. So thanks for watching. And as always, hit the like button. And if you get something out of these videos, certainly help me out so I can help you by clicking that subscribe button. And together we can help make your world. I'll see you next time.